I have decided to dress as a minion for this video. So meaning for me and my current wardrobe wear yellow. So this is a ruminating 1 July 2026, a pandemic with immunity bracelets. Today is Wednesday, 1 July 2026, and here I, Tanis, she, her, hers of Seattle, reflect on my experience traveling with required yellow fever immunization and physical immunization booklet document in South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe in 2012, and ruminate about what a pandemic with immunity bracelets might entail. Would my experience be relevant? I'm reading this. Botswana. Yes, so this was one so I was living in South Africa. I was studying abroad at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in Port Elizabeth, the name of the city at the time. And my 6-month student visa was January 2012 to June 2012. And yellow fever was one that required for border crossings, entry into country, it was required to have the immunization, and there was an actual booklet that needed to be obtained. And we didn't have to have it for South Africa, but if one traveled outside of South Africa, depending on where one's traveled in South Africa, we might have to have it. And so I went to Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. And remembering now, I'm like trying to think of the border crossings. I did take it with me to Botswana. So yes, actually, we were required to procure. I think Botswana is actually the one where they would like really hounded us for the booklet. The immunization booklet. When I went to Zambia, it was through an airport, so there was entry and producing of documents, and it didn't draw attention, the immunization booklet. Then when I went to Zimbabwe, I procured it. It reminds me a little bit now of movie going. I procured my ID, so to speak. I procured my booklet, but it wasn't necessarily checked. Like, it was checked that I had the booklet, but they didn't necessarily check all of the pages of the booklet, kind of thing. And then when I went to Botswana, that was like up front. We needed to provide our immunization booklet, if I'm recalling correctly. So there's 3 different countries and 3 different levels of enforcement, which is like, I'm going to movie going now, and the theaters I've been going to, Regal Cinnabar Mountain Lake and Regal Thornton Place, each do require ID checks. Or you know, it's policy, and then depending on like whatever, I could procure it and they could be like, oh, we don't need to scan it or that kind of thing. But like I as the person do need to have my identification card. So actually there's a little bit of a movie going parallel in my current life. So you guys will go, this is out of the blue. I'm like, well, actually it's kind of, I came up with this since I, returned to movie going back in July 2025, came up with this video concept. So I was like, maybe partially the origins are there in my movie going. So I was thinking through, there's this movie Contagion, and it shows immunity bracelets on certain people. And I was like, this is kind of like the golden standard for medicine. The industry of medicine is actually being far enough along that they can have immunity bracelets, and they understand the virus well enough that they can have immunity bracelets, and that there's actually a population of immune people, right? So it's like, is that something like, what can I come up with for what that might look like, that kind of a pandemic? Because in my lifetime, I was born approximately in 1993, there has not ever been a pandemic with immunity bracelets, right? At least for where I've lived in. I've lived in the United States of America for both the swine flu pandemic, H1N1 pandemic, and the COVID-19 pandemic. So here we go. It's kind of, I've talked about my border crossings and movie going. And this is a bonus here is this is a YouTube channel recaps video, so you can say you got it out of me one time. So did I put thought into it? An immunity bracelets pandemic. That hope, that silver lining, that golden standard. Did I at least think through it, since I do cardiology, self-experimentation? Can I provide my cardiology is study of the human heart and the corresponding blood flow system? So it's not the immune system, but what can I provide from my measly knowledge of the immune system? So here we go. Working through here, non-flu/non-flu-like virus that might be more conducive to immunity bracelets. then it can go back to flu/flu-like virus, and maybe the immunity bracelets would be helpful there. Since, you know, like how's a person immune to the flu, right? Is like, and the symptoms can be like really blurred lines. So it's like, well, maybe we go to something more clear cut, right? Oh, and with an immune population, does that exist? Okay, so me coming from the blood and the heart realm go, perhaps a virus where transmission is very straightforward, such as behavioral, like a sexually transmitted disease, STD, maybe gonorrhea. Did I spell that right? Gonorrhea, like rheology. That's not medicine though, that's like geology. I got a Bachelor of Science degree in geology and geophysics with a minor in mathematics from University of Hawaii at Manoa. They got volcanoes there. That's why yeah, that best place to do that. I got that #1 degree, yo. Okay, I even studied volcanoes and minerals and rocks. Okay. All right, anyway, I digress. Pull myself back in. I'm a minion for this one, remember? Symptoms are clear and immunity is well defined and can socially be stabilized. Yeah, so something like a STD, you know, like, at least currently, sexuality is, and sexual orientation is huge. And there are trends for like sexual behavior in books and stuff like that. So it's like, this is one where immunity, right, might be clearly defined because people go, I abstain. Am I immune? You know, like that kind of thing. What is something behaviorally analogous that I might be immune to, or I may be immune to? Say 1 month, each of my YouTube videos got 400 million views, and then the next month, each of my YouTube videos got 4 views. I may be immune to behavioral change in response to the relative drop in number of views. My audience may be shockingly immune too. This is meant as a compliment. Yeah, been watching those, you know, 4 views, if 4 views for, you know, what am I on, 10 counted years now? Kind of thing. 9 counted years, 10 counted years, because now it's like, you know, 6, 5, 6 instead of 4. But 4 is still there. So the point being is it kind of got muscle memoried in, so it doesn't, the shock value would not, hey, it's back to normal, you know. There's no shock value, right? Okay. So which might be like analogous to immunity in a medical setting, but I don't know. This is musing, ruminating. Some are curious if this could apply to HIV and or AIDS. That's a really great question that I don't know the answer to. I am not sure how clear the symptoms/immunities boundaries are, if at all, for HIV/AIDS. I have actually taught about HIV/AIDS at the university level. University of California, Berkeley. I was in the #1 graduate program in geophysics, and we had a history and evolution of planet Earth, and I was a graduate student instructor for that, and HIV/AIDS was part of the curriculum, and I was like, I learned a lot by having to teach about it, or be ready to teach about it in our discussion sections, if nothing else. Living in South Africa, but before that, that was in the 2010s decade, living in Berkeley and Albany, California, 2015, 2019. Anyway, living in South Africa, before that, 2012, I came up with HIV is not my HIC. To communicate, the virus was not my cup of tea. HIC was a citrus flavored drink. Yeah, high C. Like high V, high 5. I've done that one before. Yeah, so this isn't something I do. I don't do the immune system. I aside from like, you know, living in Africa and actually having experience with like immunization level documentation in a place with a notoriously high HIV/AIDS rates, and then instructional level at a #1 university in the world. It's not really relevant. It's not my cup of tea, even if it is relevant. So I direct you to somebody else, at least at this point in time, for those who are curious about HIV and or AIDS in the STD category. So that was the best I could come up with for the immunity bracelets pandemic ruminating. Thank you for joining me.